Sherlock was a young dungeon lord. His dungeon wasn't initiated because the dungeon core had been abandoned. Sherlock hadn't bought this abandoned dungeon core because of the persuasive sales tactics of Missy Succubus, who would cast flirtatious glances and give subtle hints occasionally. Neither was it because the dungeon core was surrounded by smelly and hard diamond seam, which was of little value. It definitely wasn't because of the short one-day's journey to the surface world's entrance, which meant that Sherlock only needed 1 day to go to the surface world. On the contrary, that also meant that the races of the various light factions on the surface world only required a day's journey to attack Sherlock's dungeon. The environment of Sherlock's dungeon was extremely bad and highly dangerous. Since it had been abandoned, immense effort would be required to reconstruct it. It wasn't because he liked a challenge. He had purchased it simply because this dungeon was the cheapest in the Underworld. Enough of the complaints. Sherlock was an ambitious and goal-oriented person. Instead of complaining, it was more productive to spend the effort reconstructing the dungeon core and kickstarting his glorious project. Infuse manner, then stamp my personal seal. Sherlock stood in front of the abandoned dull-looking dungeon core. He was holding the dungeon operating manual given to him by the sales girl in a bid to restart the dungeon core step by step. After most of the mana was infused and he was almost exhausted, Sherlock took out his personal seal and immersed it in his fresh blood before stamping it on the dungeon core. When the word Sherlock was blood stamped on the dungeon core, it radiated with brilliance. Sherlock heard a low voice coming out from the dungeon core. Servant Saber, here at your summoning. Are you my master? Sherlock frowned and flipped through the entire dungeon operating manual, confirming that there was no such segment in the manual. He lifted his head and looked dazed at the dungeon core. What should he do? Had he bought a fake dungeon core? The dungeon core waited for a while. Then, not waiting for Sherlock's reply, it said, not from transmigration. An indigenous inhabitant? Sherlock knitted his brows tighter as he mumbled to himself, this dungeon core is a nutcase. I have to get a refund from the sales girl. Indeed, nothing good comes from that cheap sale. As Sherlock turned to leave, the dungeon core became worried and shouted, the great future dungeon devil king. Those were the terms that I learned from the Underworld. I'm not a nutcase. Please stay and don't ask for a refund. Based on my poor environment and location, there won't be a sale in a million years. Sherlock paused his steps, but not because of the dungeon core's fawning. He stopped because the dungeon core had mentioned the great future dungeon devil king, and that was the truth. It was incredible that the dungeon core was able to speak. As Sherlock wasn't an experienced dungeon lord, he had never encountered one before, but that didn't mean there were no talking dungeon cores. Perhaps it was a rare occurrence. With such a thought, Sherlock was pleased for having a rare talking dungeon core. Since the dungeon core could speak logically, it wasn't broken. In fact, it could work in Sherlock's grand scheme of things. He opened up both hands and spoke for the first time as the dungeon lord. Dig 100 dungeon monsters' dwellings in 100 years. Construct 10 kitchens, 10 interrogation rooms, 10 torture chambers, 2 large training rooms, and a maze with libraries and treasure rooms for baiting surface adventurers. Also, I'll need my luxurious bedroom and the richest treasury. The first task was to get the dungeon's first batch of labor goblins. The dungeon operating manual specified clearly how to summon the goblins by using mana, as well as the corresponding dungeon level. Sherlock's dungeon was at level 1, which was the lowest level, so he could only summon goblins. If he wanted to upgrade his dungeon, he could spend money. Alternatively, he could buy or raid other dungeon cores. When his dungeon core swallowed other dungeon cores, his dungeon would improve by 1 level. After Sherlock finished reading the operating manual, he decided to infuse more mana into the dungeon core to summon the goblins. That would be the commencement for his career as the great dungeon lord. As Sherlock was about to summon the goblins, the dungeon core shouted, wait! If you follow the normal procedure to recruit goblins, you will have to pay 5 magic stones per month for each goblin. Why don't you try contracting the goblins from the Underworld? They don't require a monthly salary, are diligent, and will even pay you money. Pay me money? Why? Sherlock almost laughed out loud. He had never encountered such strange goblins. Because they are rich sows, the dungeon core replied. Sherlock couldn't believe what the dungeon core said, but he was tempted. He didn't have enough magic stones to pay the normal goblins. Though he could obtain magic stones during the development of the dungeon, his poor location negated most possibilities of obtaining magic stones since it was surrounded by the hard diamond seam. After careful consideration, Sherlock decided to use the Underworld's goblins. According to the dungeon core, he would need more mana to construct infrastructure such as teleport portals. In the following week, Sherlock provided his mana to the dungeon core to build infrastructure, specifically the teleport portals. The dungeon core seldom talked to him. After completing the teleport portals, the dungeon core explained the details of the Underworld to Sherlock. Because of cultural differences, the Underworld's goblins would perhaps say strange things, call him strange names, form their own clans, trade among themselves, engage in fights, murder, or do foolish things. Sherlock had to be mentally prepared. Since they were from different worlds, as a dungeon lord, Sherlock had to change his management style. Using brute force to order them around was the least effective way to manage. Managing them on the official website was the more effective method. The dungeon core also explained that the official website was like an embassy between the two worlds. Sherlock got the gist of it, although he felt that the Underworld's goblins were rather strange. As long as he didn't have to pay them, he had no issues. Sherlock couldn't wait to summon the goblins and start work on the dungeon. The dungeon core didn't summon the goblins. Instead, he let Sherlock carry out the publicity and recruitment on the official website. Entering the official website required the dungeon core to act as an intermediary. A screen, a keyboard, and a mouse appeared at the dungeon core. After the dungeon core taught Sherlock the basics, Sherlock had a new mission, to protect and manage the official dungeon website as the dungeon lord. The most important thing was to recruit the first batch of dungeon monsters. In the Underworld's jargon, they were called beta gamers. When Sherlock entered the official website, it was full of the Underworld's language. For a high-level devil, learning a new language wasn't a difficult task. He picked up the new language quickly and followed the Dungeon Core's instructions to broadcast the first advertisement on the official Dungeon website. The first global virtual reality online game, Dungeon, Eternal Kingdom, will start closed beta testing soon. Recruiting beta gamers. The content was created according to the Dungeon Core's suggestion. Sherlock gave an eerie name to his dungeon, Eternal Kingdom. After which, he gave the Dungeon Core an elegant name, Brew. Though the Dungeon Core strongly objected to these two names, Sherlock had already made up his mind. Why would he change his mind? As Sherlock and Brew were arguing over the names, a lot of comments were left on the official website. Violet Flower, Dungeon, Eternal Kingdom. Bye-bye, I'm going back to Dungeon Fighter to continue my bashing. Thundercliff Chief, the virtual reality online game looks interesting. Look at the promotional pictures. I thought they came from video cameras. Dr. Nays, I have submitted my application. Hope that the game officials will select me in the first batch of beta gamers. I promise to be online 24 hours every day and will immediately report any bugs. Add a few spoons of sugar, the advertisement and summary are pretty good. The professions are on the lean side. The initial profession is only a goblin. Hopefully, you can add more professions quickly. The virtual reality online gaming gimmick will definitely attract a lot of goblins to apply. Similar replies filled the comments page rapidly. Every time Sherlock refreshed the page, there were new pages of comments. The number of registrants also increased rapidly. Within a few minutes, the registration count reached 100. Sherlock was shocked. He had never heard of goblins queuing up to be recruited. He didn't intend to recruit that many goblins. Sherlock looked at Brew and asked, Brew, the Underworld is a goblin's world. Brew said, yes, almost. There are 8 billion of them, but we don't need that many. Our dungeon isn't able to accommodate that many goblins. Let's quickly select those with good attitudes. They will be easier to manage. Sherlock had the same sentiment as he looked through the pages of application forms. Within a day, there were more than 5,000 applicants. The capacity of Eternal Kingdom could only allow for 100 goblins. He couldn't afford to recruit more than the allowed capacity. Though the goblins didn't require a salary, they required food and drinks. Goblins had small appetites, but their food and drinks required magic stones as payment. Sherlock's remaining cash could only pay for 100 goblins' meals for 3 days. After that, they had to hunt for food. Sherlock selected the first 100 beta gamers quickly. Before meeting these goblins, he had another task. Buying pickaxes for them to mine ore. To buy pickaxes, Sherlock had to go to a neutral bazaar of a freedom town. The nearest one was at Winterfell. It took 10 days to walk from Eternal Kingdom to Winterfell, and time was short. He could hardly wait for the goblins to start his dungeon construction, so he decided to use the most expensive traveling method, teleport scroll. Only powerful magicians were able to activate the teleport portals of other towns at will, and Sherlock was a devil, not a magician. However, he believed that money could solve all problems. He endured the pain in his heart as he tore the teleport scroll. In the brilliance of magical light, he was teleported to a new location. Don't stand there like a fool. Leave once you have registered. There are other teleport customers behind you. The brutish orc was working at the teleport portal reception shoved the form violently into Sherlock's hands. Sherlock consoled himself that the orc's work attitude was not boorish. Rather, it was the heavy workload and the orc's nature that resulted in his poor treatment. He came down from the teleport portal while holding the form as rows of teleport portals behind him emitted rays of brilliance. As he walked towards the reception, he filled out his form. Behind the reception, there was a short gnome who was saying, I merely drank a bit more wine, but my wife gave me a violent beating. Do you see my ear? It was torn off by her. I was a legendary gladiator when I was young. The gnome showed the left side of his bloody and banded green skull while stamping on Sherlock's form. Even the dark underworld had its own rules. The neutral freedom towns were better as they were built by merchants. As long as one filled out the form and obtained a stamp, one could move freely. Upon arrival, the traveler only had to submit the form to complete the process, but other dungeons were more restrictive. For example, if other dark races were to invade Sherlock's Eternal Kingdom, he would not hesitate to kill them if he could win the fight. Holding the stamped form in his hand, Sherlock ran towards the bazaar of Winterfell, which was located in a huge dugout cavern. There were many makeshift stalls, trading gnomes and goblins, who were mostly other dungeon lords. To set up a shop in Freedom Town for selling common items, they had to pay very high rental fees. However, in the eyes of the discriminating devil Sherlock, their goods were all trash. TSK, why is that silver-scaled breastplate so shiny? It must be a lure for me to spend money. There were also other devils like Sherlock there. They led 5 to 6 meters tall giants, who were carrying corpses of magical beasts. They were here to engage in large-scale trading. Sherlock inhaled a gust of turbid air and puffed his chest out as he took his first step in his glorious dungeon lord career. How many magic stones did you bring? The Dungeon Core, Brew, asked as Sherlock was feeling uplifted. 1,000. I mortgaged all my properties. They're substantial, he said as he looked for a metal goods merchant. Brew thought for a while before saying, you are really a thrifty person. I admire you. Sherlock pretended not to hear Brew's words. Those 1,000 magic stones had been obtained after a haggling session with the real estate sales girl. Inflation was rampant these days, and life was hard. It wasn't hard to find a metal goods merchant since there were so many of them in the bazaar. Sherlock found a shop that looked slightly run down and walked in. On the shop sign was written, "Don't have the most expensive stuff." The shopkeeper was a short but muscular stone golem who was noisily banging his hammer. When he saw a customer enter, he put down the hammer and poured Sherlock a cup of bloody chrysanthemum tea. Then, he asked eagerly, "Are you buying depression cream or ash emissary?" "I'm selling high-quality imitations that are as good as real." Sherlock shook his head and said, "I want to buy 100 metal pickaxes." "No problem. 1,000 magic stones." "Free delivery," the stone golem said heartily. Sherlock inhaled a gust of cold air. Since when had pickaxes become so expensive? He was able to afford the pickaxes, but if he spent all the magic stones on tools, what were the goblins going to eat? How could he possibly let them starve to death? The stone golem noticed Sherlock's dismayed expression and was not surprised. He asked warmly, "You look like a respectable devil lord buying pickaxes for your new dungeon, right?" "Yeah, recently there are many new dungeon startups, which have caused the demand for pickaxes to surge. The price increase is normal." "No problem. You don't have to buy that many pickaxes. We have special discounts for a noble devil lord like you. Please take a look." He placed a discount flyer in front of Sherlock. 100-year anniversary sale, only 800 magic stones for a brand new blacksmith shop. Good for smelting, forging and even preparing meals and boiling water. Its usage is only limited by your imagination. What are you waiting for? Bring home a brand new blacksmith shop for just 800 magic stones. If paid in full, 20 complimentary pickaxes will be included. Sherlock was tempted. If he had a blacksmith shop, would he not be able to make his own pickaxes? He would not have to come here to buy pickaxes. 800 magic stones for a blacksmith shop and 20 pickaxes seemed quite worth it. What do you think, Brew? Good. The only note is that with a blacksmith shop, we will need a blacksmith. But, not only can we make pickaxes, we can also make weapons and armor to sell to those gamers. Those goblins. What, aren't those items given to them? I can sell the items to them. Of course, if they have money, they'll buy directly. If not, they'll complete missions. The items can be based on rewards for how many missions they complete. They even have to work for food. That is how the other world works. Was that not going to save Sherlock a large sum of money? Or even earn a handsome profit? Sherlock had only heard of dungeon lords spending money to feed the hordes. Now, the other world's goblins were going to feed him. He could not help but feel excited. Sherlock slapped the counter and paid 800 magic stones for the deal. The shopkeeper said, "It will only require half a day to construct. The construction team will be ready to set off in half an hour. You may bring them back to your dungeon." A professional blacksmith was required to work the blacksmith shop. Although he could send the gamers to learn blacksmith knowledge and skills, that could only happen in the future. Sherlock hired a highly skilled blacksmith from the shopkeeper for 100 magic stones a month. The blacksmith could work as a chef and prepare meals. It was perfect. The blacksmith would be reporting for work tomorrow. The remaining magic stones could be used to buy the goblins food, such as large intestines and various insects. In a single shopping spree, he spent all of his remaining magic stones. Sherlock did not stay long and hurried immediately to the "don't have the most expensive stuff" shop to lead the construction team back to his dungeon. Sherlock brought the stone golem workers to the dungeon core. Under his instruction, the stone golem workers started constructing the blacksmith shop at the designated location. Sherlock used his manner to move the goblins' food to a corner, since there were currently no goblins to excavate rooms. The food would not spoil in one day. All the preparations were completed, and Sherlock returned to the dungeon core. Brew suggested that Sherlock access the official website. Sherlock went through lots of doubtful, fawning, begging and angry comments left by the gamers. Sherlock created a new notice: "Dungeon, Eternal Kingdom beta testing starts tomorrow. 100 lucky gamers obtained beta tester status." The main content was to announce the identities of the 100 gamers, remind them to sign their courier packages that would arrive tonight, and teach them to use the virtual reality gaming capsule. Sherlock was curious about this couriered virtual reality gaming capsule, but Brew assured him that he had settled everything at the Underworld. Hence, Sherlock did not think too much more about the smaller matter. Not long after the notice was published, a lot of comments were left on the official website. "Casual look, mundane things, I only just applied this morning, and the selection is already completed in the afternoon. This is the fastest game to start on beta testing in the history of games. Wheeling, happy, tilde circumflex, tilde successfully obtained beta tester status. Kilburn hard, it's only been half a day, and the game has already gone viral. My QQ group was discussing this game, and someone offered 50,000 Juan for beta tester status. On it mountain, only 50,000 Juan. I know someone who offered 100,000 Juan. Dragon Raja. Breaking customs, Dragon Rajamo is investing heavily in this game. 150,000 Juan for each beta tester status. The more the merrier. Contact via phone at 139xxxxx, QQ contact 4506xxxx. Dragon Rajamo is willing to pay selected beta testers. Sherlock looked at other people's replies and continuously pressed F5 to refresh his screen. He was amused by their replies, though he was unable to understand many of the comments. Time passed quickly. Aside from the comments under his own post, there were also other gamer-created threads. The threads ranged from strategy guides, buying beta tester statuses at high prices, selling beta tester statuses, various clans recruitment to other irrelevant topics. Brew described them as insignificant posts. As Sherlock was browsing through the different postings, the stone golems had completed the blacksmith shop. It wasn't large, but it would suffice. Furthermore, they had left behind 20 pickaxes. Once Sherlock certified that the furnace was complete and signed the acknowledgement form, the stone golems left using a teleport scroll. Sherlock surveyed the surroundings and heaved a sigh of relief. He only had to wait for the Underworld's goblins to start work. Right, we should discuss the newbie missions, the dungeon core, Brew suggested. Sherlock did not know how to react to the suggestion of the beginner missions. After Brew explained them in detail, Sherlock was able to understand. The Underworld's gamers did not require a monthly salary, but they wished for clear missions like tunnel through that wall, construct a resting room for 10 people, hunt in the wilderness for 5 underground spiders, and bring back a cart full of wood. Even if Brew did not specify, Sherlock would have given the Underworld's gamers similar missions. The only difference was that they had to be rewarded with a little money, weapons, equipment and food after they completed the missions. Sherlock was starting to develop a headache as he did not expect the management of the missions to be so troublesome. He did not have weapons, equipment or food. As for wealth, the Underworld's currency was magic stones. Sherlock was not willing to use them to reward the Underworld's gamers. Then, Brew suggested that he could use gold coins for rewards. Gold coins were the currency of the surface world. 1,000 bronze coins were equivalent to 1 silver coin and 1,000 silver coins were equivalent to 1 gold coin. The main point was that after the development of the dungeon, they could lure the surface world's adventurers into the dungeon with the coins. In exchange, Sherlock could create magic stones. The naturally occurring magic stones were limited. To create magic stones, mana had to be extracted from the bodies of the surface world's adventurers using a special technique. To lure the surface world's adventurers into the dungeons, only the shiny gold coins were required. Sherlock did not understand why the surface world's adventurers were fond of the gold coins that didn't have any mana. He thought it was incredible. Sherlock did not mind using the gold coins as rewards for the Underworld's gamers. But Sherlock knew that all the Underworld's creatures like devils and such were not interested in gold coins. Would the Underworld's goblins like gold coins? Brew said confidently, yes they do. Actually, it's more like craving. If you reward them with bronze, silver or gold coins and use them as trading currency in the dungeon, they will make the coin-based economy come to life. Believe me. Sherlock was doubtful about the effects of the gold coins, but he was glad that he did not have to pay the goblins magic stones as salary. It was no issue for Sherlock to reward them with gold coins. A magic stone could be exchanged for a large chest of gold coins. Sherlock's next task was to discuss with Brew the standardized reward for various missions. When the Underworld's gamers arrived at the dungeon, he wanted them to work diligently and happily. Making the gamers content was what a good dungeon lord ought to do. Most Underworld monsters sought employment with the dungeon lords. They were not puppets that dungeon lords created using mana. After finishing his work, Sherlock looked at the time and discovered that half a day had passed. It was almost time for the selected gamers to arrive at the dungeon. As a new dungeon lord, Sherlock was about to meet his first batch of workers. He was nervous. After checking the goblins' food, the gold coins for reward in the blacksmith shop, Sherlock discovered an important issue. His blacksmith had not arrived yet. While he was fretting about when the blacksmith would arrive, a magical ray appeared in the dungeon and a teleport portal appeared in front of him. Without his approval, nobody could open up a teleport portal in his dungeon. He only allowed one person to do that, and that was his employed blacksmith. A dark-skinned dwarf walked out from the teleport portal. He was a blacksmith dwarf living in the Underworld and not a cavern dwarf. The dwarves were extremely good in smithing and forging. A new developing dungeon. You look pretty young for a devil. The dwarf walked out of the portal and looked around at the small dungeon. He lifted his hammer and shouted at Sherlock with his bright voice, "I'm your newly recruited blacksmith, Simba. This is our contract. The effective date is 3 months, and the monthly salary is 100 magic stones. Please verify the contract, young devil lord." The blacksmith took out a contract and gave it to Sherlock. He examined it carefully to ensure it was the contract he signed yesterday. He returned the contract to the blacksmith and said formally, "Welcome, Simba. You're the first worker of this great dungeon. That's your workplace." Sherlock pointed at the empty blacksmith shop, and he suddenly recalled something. He pointed at the food in the corner and said, "Those are the raw food materials. There aren't any special warehouses for proper storage yet. Once the goblins arrive, I will get them to construct a food warehouse. Please prepare portable meals like pies, because the goblins won't have the chance to sit down for a meal." Sherlock sounded like a cruel slave driver. The blacksmith Simba was used to such things. It was obvious this was not his first time working for a dungeon lord. Entering the blacksmith shop, he immediately started the fire skillfully. Then, he prepared the metal pot and collected the food materials to cook the meals. There were no ores, so there were no metals. The ores had to be mined by the goblins. Seeing the blacksmith settling down, Sherlock tidied up his clothes and extended his huge devil's wings as he watched himself in the mirror. Ensuring that his imposing image of a devil overlord was good, he went to the front of the dungeon core. Next, he was going to summon 100 selected gamers from the Underworld. The summoning ritual was simple. Besides infusing mana, he had to sign the Underworld's contract. For example, there was the Dungeon, Eternal Kingdom, Virtual Reality Web Distribution Rights Contract, the 2019 No Approval Form, the Disclaimers Form, and other types of contracts. Sherlock signed without a word through the dungeon core. He didn't even look at the fine print because the Underworld's agreements did not have binding power on the devil. After completing his contracts, Sherlock began his summoning work. After infusing the required mana into the dungeon core, 100 half-human-sized teleport portals appeared before him. Sherlock placed his hands behind his back and pushed out his chest while waiting for the gamers to pledge their loyalty. He waited for a few minutes, but there were no goblins. Sherlock said impatiently, "Where are my workers? The gamers from the other world, why aren't they coming out? They are molding their faces. They always pay attention to unimportant details like appearances, clothing and even accessories. The culture of the other world is like that," Prue explained. Sherlock suppressed his impatience and waited. Sometimes a few senseless devils would use manner to change their looks. He did not expect the goblins to have such a tendency, and that it was common in the other world. The manner to change their looks came from Sherlock. Each goblin that came to his dungeon required his manner to sustain the link between his world with the other world. However, the manner used was a small pittance. It was not a burden for Sherlock. Sherlock did not have to wait for a long time before the first goblin walked out from the teleport portal. The goblin was tall for his race and was almost at the upper limit. He reached the height of Sherlock's knees. The goblin was naked from the chest up and wore a pair of shorts. Sherlock was in a daze as the goblin walked out from the teleport portal. The goblin looked in astonishment at the surroundings. After surveying the environment, he muttered, "Is the technology that advanced? I initially thought the virtual reality mode would feel fake, but it is actually real. My God, the game modeling, the quality of the materials, the feel of the skin and its accompanying pain feel so real. Can it be adjusted?" To Sherlock, the goblin had gone into a feverish state which was abnormal. Normally, every dark creature that arrived in the dungeon would pledge its loyalty to the dungeon lord. "My lowly servant, why aren't you pledging your loyalty to the great devil lord, Sherlock? You will obtain my mercy and bountiful rewards if you do so." Sherlock straightened his back and said in a cool, emotionless voice. He resisted showing his exhilaration and excitement. The goblin heard Sherlock's voice and turned his head to look at Sherlock. After that, he lifted his head in panic and screamed in a shrill voice, "Not we Rinkpence pledges loyalty to the great devil lord, Sherlock." After screaming, the goblin started to wander and look around. He said to himself, "This game's dungeon lord NPC is so real, and the oppressive aura is so strong that I almost knelt down. It is awesome. I'm going to the discussion forum to praise it to the heavens." Sherlock felt that the goblin was acting weird. What was even more strange was that when the goblin announced his name, the words "Not we Rinkpence" appeared above his head. Correct, that was the name given to himself by the goblin. The name would follow the goblin as he moved around as though it was part of him. As Sherlock was wondering why the goblin would use manner to show his strange name above his head, numerous different goblins came out of the teleport portal. Some wore worn-out shirts and shorts that covered the essential 3 points. Others simply wore the same shorts as Not we Rinkpence. They had various faces, but they had a common feature: ugliness. Did you expect goblins to look good? The goblin started chatting in front of Sherlock. "Greetings. What, I can't use Japanese-style emoticons in this game?" An ugly female goblin with large eyes and a tall nose bridge spoke hoarsely. "Of course not. This game is a virtual reality that relies on the nervous system sensor inputs instead of the traditional mouse and keyboard inputs. Look at my tongue. Lulu. See how agile my tongue is? Are other games able to achieve this effect?" A male goblin standing next to the female goblin said as he wiggled his tongue. "What should we do now? Is there a beginner's tutorial in this game?" Another goblin asked. "Yes, are there missions for us to complete? Are we free to roam around? Is he the dungeon lord, devil lord Sherlock? Wow, the NPC modeling is awesome. Are we able to select devil lord as our profession? Currently, it is beta testing, so there's only goblin as a profession. The official website said that the official launch will have many more professions for selection. Will there be an opening animation?" The dungeon core main hall had become the 100 gamers chatting hall. In the chatting process, they would give themselves various weird or decent names, which would appear in prominent green text above their heads. Some gamers engaged in simple chatting, while most of them wandered around the dungeon, touching and exploring everything. Sherlock had shut off all exit points. The dungeon was not very big. Even if they wandered around, there were no places to go. Quiet, the Otherworld servants. "I'm your noble devil lord Sherlock. From today onwards, you'll become the dungeon Eternal Kingdom citizens. Your mission is to make Eternal Kingdom the greatest dungeon in the history of the Underworld." After his speech, he ordered Brew to allocate their prepared missions to the gamers. The communication between the dungeon lord and the servants was done via the dungeon core. Sherlock could remotely assign missions to his servants using the dungeon core. According to Brew, a direct order to the servants was not very effective. Instead, using missions with rewards was a better way to direct them. The rewards consisted mainly of bronze, silver or gold coins. Once Brew transmitted the missions, a mission panel appeared before the gamers and prompted them on mission acceptance. "Mine 100 diamond seam. My beginner's tutorial mission is to mine ore. I have the same mission. The reward is 10 bronze coins. Where is the diamond seam? I'm supposed to carry the 100 diamond seam to the blacksmith shop. Why am I carrying the stones? I want to mine ore." The goblins with all mining missions were given the 20 pickaxes, while most of the goblins were given tasks of carrying the ores. The ores would be smelted into usable metals and made into pickaxes, metal tools, shields, armor and weapons. How could a dungeon be without armaments? Since the Eternal Kingdom dungeon had been abandoned and undeveloped for many years, the surrounding areas were filled with dangerous and unknown underworld creatures. Even Sherlock found them hard to deal with, especially the magical beasts. The number of magical beasts was small, but they were much stronger than normal wild beasts. Some examples of magical beasts were crypt spiders, killer vines and dire wolves. During the expansion of the dungeon, if these magical beasts intruded into the dungeon via excavated tunnels or the entrances of the dungeon, it would be problematic for Sherlock. Hence, his servants needed to be armed so that they could repulse unwanted visitors. These magical beasts could also be food for the goblins. Sherlock could not possibly go to the bazaar to buy food for the goblins every time. He didn't want to use the expensive teleport scroll. The behavior and language of goblins from the Underworld were very strange. They would give themselves names and check their ugly bodies and appearances frequently. They also had strong curiosity and abnormal social behaviors. They were bold. Quite a number of goblins came to greet him, kneel down, bow and even tell him jokes proactively. A lowly goblin encountering a high-status devil would normally feel fear. But the Underworld's goblins were not fearful of Sherlock. They seemed unafraid of death. Sherlock witnessed a goblin putting his hand into the lit furnace and promptly being tossed out of the blacksmith shop by Simba. This incident proved that these goblins were not afraid of death. Sherlock was indifferent to their weird behaviors as these goblins worked efficiently and had strong power. Even if they were not paid a monthly salary and not given any food, they would mine or carry the ores enthusiastically after being assigned their tasks. There were no signs of slacking. After completing their missions, they would find Sherlock for rewards which were the bronze coins. They counted each coin carefully and put them safely into their pockets as though they were great treasures. Those goblins who completed their mining missions returned the pickaxes to Sherlock. Other goblins who received mining missions would then obtain pickaxes from Sherlock before bolting off to mine ores. Sherlock had visited other dungeons and had seen other goblins, but they had not had the efficiency and enthusiasm of the Underworld's goblins. Even when their salary was paid on time and they were given delicious meals, they would still slack off on their jobs. Hence, a whip-wielding orc had to be employed as a supervisor. If neither salary nor food was given, the goblins would run off. Though the Underworld's goblins were weird and fond of metal coins, Sherlock was quite pleased with their work efficiency and enthusiasm. He could save on the magic stones and even food since the goblins would pay using their money. Hence, he was able to accept their minor flaws. My respectable Lord Sherlock, since the start of our beta testing, I have felt that we need to refine our game content and information on the official website. For example, the game map, monster bestiary, and newly opened areas should all be updated, Bruce suggested to Sherlock as he was supervising the goblins at work. Sherlock did not fully understand the game map, monster bestiary, and newly opened areas. If they were explained individually, Sherlock might have been able to understand. Now that they were compounded, what was the meaning? Brew was aware of Sherlock's confusion and explained, as you can see, the goblins are very different. Take it is the goblins seeing this world as their playground. Mining and carrying ores are hard labor to this world's goblins, but to the Underworld's goblins, they are a form of entertainment. They have just started a new life in the world, so their enthusiasm and high efficiency will continue in the future. They don't require salary or food. They need more game features. We need to set up more places as entertainment venues for these goblins. Like other dungeons that built entertainment outlets for them to play with mud, wrestle and watch shows. Sherlock thought for a while and felt it was necessary. He knew that other dungeon lords would create entertainment outlets to keep their goblins happy. Sherlock was in a bind as he lacked magic stones and was unable to hire performance troupe and wrestlers. He could let them play with mud though. You get the gist of it, but these gamers don't really like playing with mud, watching wrestling or performances. They prefer a more peaceful entertainment adventure. Brew explained what these gamers really liked. These gamers did not like to stay in the dungeon. Instead, they loved to explore the unknown world and fight cruel battles with wild beasts. The more bloody and cruel the fight, the happier they would feel. Even death would not stop them from finding their excitement. They especially like exploring new areas. If they met with powerful opponents, they would form groups of tens to hundreds and fight as a group, even at the expense of their lives. Their only goal was to kill their powerful opponent. After victory, they expected to be rewarded with gold coins, especially equipment. This was not difficult to achieve as the bones and skins of the Underworld's wild beasts could be made into equipment. The more powerful the wild beast, the better the equipment. In the case of the magical beasts, magical equipment could be made and sold at high prices at the bazaar. To Sherlock, this equipment was trash. A respectable devil depended on his personal power, and magical items were merely tools of the trade. Armor and weapons were redundant to a devil. After Bruce's explanation, Sherlock understood that he had to open up a new area with a constant supply of monsters, loot and treasures. If he could create a maze or a boss-level wild beast, that would be even better. Then, the gamers could adventure in that area as entertainment. Sherlock had to prepare a map, monster bestiary and sufficient loot. Though it was troublesome, it was not difficult. Sherlock also had the intention to explore the surrounding areas. The Underworld monsters could be a resource for development. Sooner or later, he had to let his servants kill those monsters and retrieve their carcasses. He was pleased that he could save his magic stones and provide an entertainment outlet for the goblins at the same time. As long as he could save on the magic stones, it was worthwhile. Sherlock accepted Bruce's suggestion and let Brew take over the mission rewards allocation. Then, he explored the dungeon and chose a suitable entertainment outlet, Spider Cave. The Underworld spiders were a good supply of monsters as they multiplied fast and had large numbers. They infested almost the entire Underworld. A spider queen could lay eggs for tens to hundreds of spiders and could reproduce in the blink of an eye. Moreover, the spiders liked to dig, and their lair was like a maze that even Sherlock refused to venture into. Within the lair were other Underworld creatures such killer vines, Underworld worms and dim-witted hound-head men. These creatures were not powerful, but they provided enough challenge for the gamers. Sherlock finished selecting the new area for the gamers. As he was about to return to the dungeon, he heard Bruce say, "Lord Sherlock, a gamer has died." "What?" "My servant died. How did he die?" "Are there invaders?" Sherlock had not expected that the dungeon would be in trouble after he had only ventured out for a short while. He hurried back as Brew explained the situation to him. There were no invaders. A gamer had committed suicide by smashing into walls. Why did the goblin from the Underworld commit suicide? Did he give them too much work? Sherlock did not understand, as he was quite a benevolent dungeon lord. He tried his best to accommodate their strange requirements, but the goblin had still committed suicide. With regards to this incident, Brew explained, the goblin wanted to know how to revive after dying. As it was his first time in this world, he wanted to familiarize himself with the operations. After returning to the other world, he will make a strategy guide. That's normal. Sherlock could not figure out how a suicide could be a good strategy, but he returned to the dungeon quickly. He saw the gamers surrounding the dead gamer. Is not wearing pants on a corpse run? Why hasn't he revived after such a long time? Perhaps there are revival conditions to be met. This is a new game after all. Perhaps there's no way to revive after death. Start from scratch. Is it the same design as Divine Realm of Swords and Sabers? The death penalty is too severe, so beginners beware. This game is too hardcore. This game is indeed hardcore. The virtual reality mimics the reality to the core. Even if death is permanent, isn't it normal? Give way, the Devil Lord is back. Wow, the Devil Lord is alarmed by death. The game NPC's interactivity is too real. These gamers not only surrounded the dead not wearing pants, but they also discussed if and when he could revive. Sherlock's return created a disturbance among the gamers. They quickly opened up a path for Sherlock to walk to the front of not wearing pants. Sherlock recognized the dead gamer. He had been the first goblin to arrive at the dungeon. His green name not wearing pants floated above his head. He lay on the ground without any breath. The cause of death was evident from the cracked green skull he had smashed his head on the wall. There were ways to revive him. Sherlock had to venture to the spirit world to redeem his soul, and it would take great effort to revive him. It would be easier to just recruit a new goblin. As Sherlock was about to give up on the goblin and toss his corpse outside the dungeon, Bruce stopped him and said, "Wait for a while, Dungeon Lord. His soul has not returned to the spirit world. His soul is in the dungeon core, Dungeon Lord." Sherlock focused his attention in the dungeon core and saw a clump of white stuff floating in the core. That was the goblin's soul. The soul was not interesting looking, and Sherlock had no luck communicating with it. Did you retrieve his soul? Even if he was from the other world, his soul would have returned to the spirit world after death. What capabilities do you have? Or, what capability does the goblin have? Sherlock could not understand certain things. Though he could do the same thing, he had to retrieve his soul at the first instance of his death. During the summoning, I used a little technique. Our spirit world will not detect nor retrieve their souls. I'm not sure if we can call them souls. I'm more inclined to call them awareness. After death, we only need to heal their bodies and then infuse them with their awareness. Then, they will be revived. If their bodies are completely destroyed, we have to send their awareness back and do a new summoning. In the other world, this process is called reconstructing character, Brew explained. Is this a new feature of the dungeon core? I can't find this feature in the operating manual. As Brew was explaining, Sherlock was already checking his dungeon operating manual, but he could not find the relevant sections. No, that's my unique capability. I can fuse both mana and technology together. Yes, technology is equivalent to the other world's mana that allows communication over great distances, let people without mana fly up in the sky, and even allow one's images and voice to transmit to billions of people in an instant, Brew said with pride. Sherlock was curious about the technology of the other world, but he did not look forward to it because he could achieve the same effect by using more mana. From the behavior of the goblins, he concluded that the other world was a mad world. Sherlock did not probe further since Brew had already settled the problems. Normal people would be curious and shocked by resurrection, but to a great devil like Sherlock, he had different ways to revive his servants. His methods were not as simple and fast as Brew's. It was simple to heal the goblin's body. Sherlock extended his hand and infused mana into Notwehr Ringpunt's corpse. The damaged green skull was healed, and Brew led the awareness into Notwehr Ringpunt's body. In the next moment, Notwehr Ringpunt inhaled deeply and sat up. Shasta T. He's alive. This game's revival mechanism requires the dungeon lord to personally revive the dead subject. I thought after death, the account could not be used anymore. Brother, what's your feeling after death? Did you have a corpse run? Is it related to the severity of damage to the body? Our dungeon lord healed his corpse first, and then he was revived. Everyone surrounded Notwehr Ringpunt and discussed at length about his revival. Then, a goblin shouted, "I'm going to try it." He dashed boldly into blacksmith Simba's furnace and disappeared as expected. Sherlock felt a throbbing headache. He did not expect a second suicide that fast, and it even used the furnace too. To prevent mass suicide, Sherlock waved his hand and exerted his great devil's authority to command them to finish their tasks. He managed to disperse the goblins. As for that badly burnt goblin, Brew managed to summon him from the other world after 30 minutes. When the goblin returned, his appearance had changed, though he retained his original name. He had lost all his bronze coins. According to Brew, the goblin had created a new account. Sherlock developed a better understanding of the gamer's weird behavior. He had to refine the new area map, monster blueprints and the revision notes on the official website, so he didn't have time to supervise the goblins. Their enthusiasm was not affected by his absence. He had to demarcate a large construction area and work objectives. Then, Brew would allocate the mining and carrying of ores tasks to these gamers. Sherlock returned to the magical item, computer, and entered his official dungeon website. He followed Brew's suggestions and used the Underworld's tone and language habits to create a new announcement, Dungeon, Eternal Kingdom beta testing in progress. Tomorrow, there will be a new area map for testing Spider's Lair. Sherlock felt that these announcements were like his dungeon advertisements in the outer world, and they increased his reputation. His dungeon was going to be the greatest, so garnering reputation was necessary. The contents of the announcement were the map of the spider's lair and the bestiary of the monsters that showed their introduction and capabilities. For example, monster name, Underworld spider. Monster introduction, the most common underworld creature with low intellect and fear of light. It will proactively attack other creatures. Those who are weak and alone should run upon meeting one as the spiders attacking groups. Level 0-5. Possible loot, spider leg, spider meat, spider silk, rare, and others. Note, most of the loot may be exchanged for coins at the dungeon core main hall. Monster name, killer vines. Monster introduction, this sounds like a plant, but it is a creature that is disguised as vines. The killer vines often attack unsuspecting passers-by and are easily killed. Level 0-2. Possible loot, killer vines skin, meat and others. Note, most of the loot may be exchanged for coins at the dungeon core main hall. Besides these common creatures, Sherlock arranged for a boss-level creature. Monster name, Spider Queen. Monster introduction, the queen of the underworld spiders horde. Usually, there is only one queen in horde. She is extremely territorial and will have a large number of underworld spiders for protection. Under normal circumstances, you are not able to see the queen since you will be killed by hordes of underworld spiders before getting close to the queen. Level, boss, possible loot, spider leg, spider meat, spider. Level, boss, possible loot, spider leg, spider meat, spider silk, rare, spider egg, ultra rare, spider queen's hair, ultra rare, and others. Note, the spider queen's hair is one of the mana ingredients that Dungeon Lord Sherlock is interested in. If you obtain it, you will gain advanced standing and reputation points with Dungeon Lord Sherlock. Though I'm very interested in spider queen's hair because of its high value and its use for making powerful armor. Why do I have to give them advanced standing and reputation points? Sherlock could not resist asking this question. Because these otherworld gamers are different from the underworld creatures. They are extremely conscious of their existence and fame, Bruce said. You are their dungeon lord. Giving them advanced standing and reputation points are ways to reinforce their existence and need for fame. It is also a way for them to show respect for you. Having lots of metal coins is also another way for the goblins to have self-worth. Sherlock nodded. Lowly servants having to fawn and flatter their master to obtain attention and favor were also prevalent in the underworld. However, it sounded like the surface world's human riders treated fame with more importance than their lives. Sherlock checked carefully for mistakes after finishing the announcement contents. Then, he published it. Sherlock looked at the time. Half a day had passed since he had summoned the goblins. Outside the dungeon core main hall, most of the gamers were busy with work as they wanted to obtain more metal coins. Some gamers lay on the floor motionless. According to Brew, they were not dead. They were merely sleeping or had gone offline. The underworld did not have day or night. As a dungeon lord, Sherlock had a strong concept of time. Many dungeons followed the surface world with day and night shifts. Sherlock's dungeon had not reached the threshold where shifts were necessary. He was also not well off and had not reached that extravagant of a level. As time passed, many goblins rested or went offline. Because the resting rooms had not been constructed yet, they had to sleep on the ground. Once the dungeon was fully furnished, there would be resting rooms, so they would not have to sleep around the dungeon. Blacksmith Simba took out his own sleeping bag and found a quiet place to squirm into his sleeping bag. He used his hammer to chase away a few curious goblins who wanted to watch him sleep. Sherlock did not care about his servants' antics. He focused his attention on the official website. He wanted to study the reviews of the Underworld's goblins on his great dungeon. Soon, in the messy discussion forum, he found the most popular post with the largest number of replies. Beta Gamer's Great Revelation, the most complete and cutting-edge dungeon, Eternal Kingdom, Strategy Guide. The posting, Beta Gamer's Great Revelation, the most complete and cutting-edge dungeon, Eternal Kingdom Strategy Guide, was published 2 hours after Sherlock announced the opening of the new area. The post was published less than half an hour ago and attracted about 1,000 replies. The page views increased at an insane rate. Besides Sherlock's announcement, it was the most popular post. From the title, it was created from one of the 100 servants who were summoned to the dungeon. Sherlock was concerned about his servants' views of the dungeon as they were members of the dungeon. In the future, the dungeon would have more inhabitants. As the dungeon was just starting up, Sherlock felt he should get more feedback on the dungeon. Sherlock clicked on the posting. Beta Gamer's Great Revelation, the most complete and cutting-edge dungeon, Eternal Kingdom, Strategy Guide. Greetings, I am Beta Gamer, not Wearing Pants. That is correct. I am the one at the B platform recording professional videos on strategy guides. I have been fortunate to obtain Dungeon, Eternal Kingdom, Beta Tester status. This is the first global game that deviates from the traditional gaming console. Instead, this online game uses gaming capsule and virtual reality technology. I was like the common crowd and thought that the gaming capsule and virtual reality were gimmicks. This morning at 9 o'clock, I lay down in the gaming capsule and entered the Dungeon, Eternal Kingdom. I feel I have to apologize to the producer of this game. Sorry. There is 100% restoration and freedom. This is not a gimmick, it is the real deal. I do not know which game engine is used. Upon consideration that it is a virtual reality online game, I am afraid the game technology cannot be called game engine. Perhaps we have entered the Age of Empires time period when we insert cables into the backs of our heads. That is correct. This game is as real as a second world. Besides articulating every joint, we can breathe and interact with any object. We even have the sensation of pain. Of course, we can adjust the pain intensity from 0 to 100%. I suggest normal gamers adjust it to 0 while hardcore gamers may challenge the pain intensity at 100%. I killed myself by bashing the wall and tested the revival mechanism. This is my earnest suggestion. Enough said, this is the most complete and cutting-edge strategy guide. The game background is a medieval world of swords and magic. Our initial starting point was at the Eternal Kingdom dungeon. When the game started, we appeared at the dungeon core main hall. Before appearing, we could mold our face to our liking. As we could only choose the goblin race, no matter how we customized our appearance, we do not look appealing. I suggest you do not waste too much time in this segment. Wait for the game to be updated with more races. There are 2 game NPCs. I am not sure whether they are functional or storyline NPCs or both. One of them is the dungeon blacksmith Simba, who is a black dwarf with a hot temper. Though we can interact freely with the blacksmith shop's objects, I suggest that you do not touch the items inside because the NPC will beat you up. Currently, there are no weapons or armor for sale, but food is available for sale. You need food in the game. If you do not eat, you will feel hunger. The feeling is so authentic that your body will exhibit weakness. To buy food, you require bronze coins, and to obtain bronze coins, you have to finish the missions that appear before you. You only have to accept the missions. Picture. The second NPC is the Dungeon Lord, Devil Lord Sherlock. Picture. According to my experience, the Devil Lord Sherlock is the one who we pledged our allegiance to. His status is similar to the World of Warcraft faction leader. He is the only one who allocates missions and rewards us for completed tasks. There is another functional facility called the Dungeon Core. At times, Lord Sherlock, aka Shalai, is not in the dungeon. We can submit our missions and obtain rewards at the Dungeon Core, which is called Brew. As I have not communicated with Brew, I do not know if Brew is an NPC or just a mission tablet. As the game is in beta testing, there were only 2 NPCs. Some of you may think that it is too little, but considering that the virtual reality is 100% close to life, the development lag in other areas is understandable. It is much more meaningful to let us gamers participate and help improve such an online game. Next, I am explaining the game settings. There were no official details on the game settings, only game background and dungeon introduction. All the game settings were carefully discovered, profoundly summarized and boldly speculated by me. First point, this game does not have health and mana bars, attribute points or character panel. I am not sure if the character panel will be shown after engaging in battle. When the new area is opened tomorrow, I will explore it and then give an accurate description. Of course, you can give yourself names, but the name can only contain letters, no symbols or punctuation marks. It appears in green above the head. Second point, battling in this game is different from the traditional combat system. There are no permanent professions, no character level differences, no experience bars, and no skill points. But in this sword and magic world, we should be able to use bronze coins or other methods to learn skills or strengthen ourselves. Learning skills depends on our choice and is not decided by profession. Perhaps a goblin like me can wield a magical staff and long sword, just like combat magician Gandalf. Some people might not be used to this, but I feel that this is a good point of this game. The selling point is based 100% on reality and freedom, hence, the future combat skill development is controlled by us. We can choose the skills based on our preference and capability, which mimics reality. As for the details, we have to wait for the game to release information gradually. Third point, mission system. I thought the mission system was the same as other games where predetermined missions are triggered by certain conditions. In the beta testing, I discovered that this is not the case. The game is like a real-time computer that decides which missions to give out based on the dungeon development. If there is a demand for more ores, there will be more mining missions. If there is a demand for transportation, more missions for carrying ore will be allocated. When a demand is satisfied, there will not be similar missions given. People do not have to worry that there are no missions as the dungeon has just started development. Thus, there are many missions. I have already played for more than 10 hours. Besides spending time on studying the settings, most of my time was spent mining and carrying ores. I'll call this carrying bricks. In the beginning, I felt that the repeating missions were too routine and robotic. Even when I was given a lot of bronze coins as reward, I didn't want to do it. I would rather smash against the wall and die or rush into the furnace and be burned to death. But now it's different. That is correct. The reality and authentic feel makes the routine carrying of bricks extremely fun. Fourth point, currency. Currently, all gamers have only seen bronze coins. I do not know if there are silver and gold coins above the bronze coins. I think there are, because I saw Shalai sort his money bag. There were golden and shiny objects inside that looked like gold coins. Besides using bronze coins to buy food from Simba, there is nothing else to buy. However, once the dungeon is developed, there will be other merchandise such as weapons, armor, and healing salves. As the game development progresses, more details will be revealed to gamers. Fifth point, as it is an online game with a high degree of freedom, comparing it to sandbox mode is unavoidable. In the game, you are allowed to move things that you can carry and change their location permanently. You can also use the pickaxe to mine in the areas demarcated by the Dungeon Lord and change the look of the environment. I tried mining outside the area demarcated by the Dungeon Lord and I failed. There is a hidden setting that makes it difficult for the gamer to violate the direct orders of the Dungeon Lord. When we faced the Dungeon Lord, we felt a dominant authority and subservience was irresistible. Perhaps it was due to our goblin status. Once there are newer and higher level races, perhaps the situation will change. Sixth point, regarding revival. Death is unavoidable in online games. Gamers are very concerned about the death penalty. Today, I tried it out in the beta testing. That is correct. I was the bold gamer who committed suicide by smashing against a wall. I felt 100% throbbing pain. Even now, my head is throbbing with pain. The game's sensation of pain is too real. After death, gamers will be forced to appear at the game preparation realm. Once the body is healed, then the gamer can revive. While waiting for revival, the gamer can only browse the official website or discussion forum. 7th point, whether beta tester status can be sold, bought or shared. Rich gamers do not have to think about it. There were no methods to charge one's account and there's no marketplace. The beta tester status cannot be sold, bought or shared because the game required a game capsule to play. The game capsule is bound to the gamer after the contract is signed. Only the gamer with the contract can use the game capsule. Those who are thinking of buying beta tester status or sharing the game capsule should give up. When I committed suicide by smashing into the wall, the only penalty was waiting. There was another gamer who dashed into the blacksmith shop's furnace and was burnt to ash. The in-game character was completely destroyed, and he had to create another account. The death penalty and the after-death body conditions are related. If the body can be healed, there will not be special penalty. If the body cannot be healed, for example, burnt to ash, then the gamer will need to create a new character. The gamer must ensure that the body is intact when dying. If the gamer is outside the dungeon, please keep a companion close by to bring your corpse back to the eternal kingdom in the event that you perish. Besides Shalai, no one else can heal bodies. The gamers do not have such skills. Death has its own risks and penalties. Please cherish your lives. This is a lot of information. Note that I am merely recording down my thoughts. If there are missing parts, do fill in the blanks yourselves. It is getting late now and dawn is coming. I will be getting some rest. The live stream at B platform will stop since I need to play Dungeon, Eternal Kingdom. I am going offline now and will take a look at the comments later in the day. The new area will open in the morning at 7, and I would like to be the first one to explore. Good night. Sherlock finished reading the contents of this post in one go. He had some impression of not wearing pants and was curious and bewildered by the gamers' feedback. Though the gamers were hardworking and did not require salary, he was bewildered by their thoughts. He could only attribute his lack of understanding to the differences in culture. Are you sure this NPC photograph is not a cosplay photograph? Why are the graphics so real? Why did I not get beta tester status? I can't bear to wait. Hope the game goes into open testing soon. Some of the remarks below were doubtful and full of surprise. Others wanted QQ or chat contacts, while some wanted beta testers accounts at all costs, even if they had to spend all their wealth just to work for Sherlock. The replies reached thousands in number. Though Sherlock read the replies and comments patiently, the increase in replies was faster than his reading speed. After reading 500 threads and noticing that there was still 100 unread pages of threads, Sherlock decided to give up. Sherlock found the gamers' comments in the discussion forum to be very interesting, but he had a lot of work to do in the dungeon. For example, he needed to make the necessary arrangements for blacksmith Simba to create metal tools, weapons and armor. Sherlock put aside his computer and walked out of the dungeon core main hall. He shouted to blacksmith Simba. There were not many gamers outside, as most of them were resting on the ground. Sherlock did not mind the goblins having a structured resting time. First, he was not a harsh dungeon lord. Secondly, he initially wanted to recruit only 5 goblins, but now he had 100 without spending any magic stones. He had to supply them food, though. Simba was asleep when he heard someone shouting for him. His first reaction was to hit them with his hammer. When he realized it was Sherlock, he stood up respectfully and said, "Lord Sherlock, why are you calling me? I intend to send these goblins to clear the nearby spider's lair." "Are there any materials in the dungeon to make weapons and armor?" Sherlock asked. "Clearing the nearby spider's lair." "Lord Sherlock, you are the first dungeon lord to send goblins into battle. Your goblins are indeed different from the rest. One of them smashed into the wall and died, and another dashed into my furnace and killed himself. Are these suicide methods thought out by you?" Simba rubbed his eyes as he stood up and walked towards the blacksmith shop. Sherlock followed him and said, "Their thinking, behavior and habits are different from normal goblins, but they have other good points like diligence. Letting them clear the spider's lair is a good form of entertainment." Sherlock remembered the gamer's joyful anticipation of the new area and said, "From my knowledge, they are looking forward to clearing the spider's lair. I don't dispute their diligence. They are much more hard-working and odd than the goblins that I have seen." Simba walked into the blacksmith shop. The half-open blacksmith shop was located on the open ground in front of the dungeon core main hall. It was about half the size of a basketball field and consisted of 2 metal furnaces and a forging platform. Though it was small, it had everything necessary. On the left side of the blacksmith shop was a pile of diamond seam, which was a kind of rock commonly seen in the Underworld. It could be used for construction as well as forging. Blacksmiths could forge metal into weapons, armor and equipment from large amounts of diamond seam. Thanks to those hard-working goblins, the diamond seam stockpile could be forged into 100 complete sets of armor and weapons. To improve them is not possible as there are only rocks here. Simba surveyed the surroundings and said, "You are fortunate. Normally, dungeon lords do not recruit that many goblins in one go. Seems like Lord Sherlock is intending to create an outstanding dungeon. Would you like to consider employing another blacksmith? My brother's skill is excellent and the price is reasonable. Employ another one. Wouldn't Sherlock have to pay another salary?" Sherlock was quite poor. Even Simba's salary was still a question mark. How could he afford another blacksmith? If he was unable to raise the 100 magic stones for Simba's salary, he might be sued by the do not have the most expensive stuff blacksmith shop. Sherlock would be blacklisted by the merchants, and he would find it difficult to do business in the neutral towns. We'll discuss your brother later. Let's talk about the equipment. I'm hoping you can forge 100 sets of armor and weapons. You'll forge a sword as the standard weapon. Simba quickly said, Lord Sherlock, with regards to the equipment, I have an abnormal matter to report to you. Simba took out a thick book from his pocket. Dense words were seen on the book. He said, since the goblins started work yesterday, they have repeatedly asked me to sell them equipment. I explained to them that the dungeon does not have equipment for them to use. I found them too annoying, so I left a book at the blacksmith shop entrance for them to write down their equipment requests. I feel that you should take a look. Sherlock took the book from Simba and read carefully. Teacher Sitama, I hope to buy boxing gloves type of weapons. Is the development team able to read our suggestions? Cleric ceremonies, I wish to become a magician or pastor or similar skilled profession. Can I buy a magic wand? Most of the requests consisted of their various thoughts and nonsensical weapons. The Underworld gamers also requested for their weapons to look cool. Sherlock decided to decline all the unreasonable requests. He told Simba not to be distracted by these strange requests and concentrate on forging the 100 sets of armor and weapons. Simba nodded and started the forging fire. Numerous gamers were attracted by the noise in the blacksmith shop, and they surrounded the shop and watched. Sherlock was nonchalant, as it was not the first time that the gamers were curious. He commanded the gamers to continue carrying the ores and said to Simba, I'll give these weapons and armor prices. You may create a price list signboard at the shop entrance. The goblins have to pay for the weapons and armor using their metal coins. And the equipment distributed to them, Simba asked, bewildered. As you know, our dungeon is using metal coins as reward to encourage the goblins to work hard. The metal coins were obtained from the bazaar with magic stones, Sherlock said. Though the metal coins are not valuable, if I continue rewarding them daily, the coins will be used up. I have to find a way to get back the coins. Selling the weapons and armor is a good method. Sherlock and Blue had already discussed this. The Otherworld's gamers preferred to use their efforts and labor to exchange for rewards and items instead of obtaining free stuff from Sherlock. This would fuel their enthusiasm and strengthen their sense of independence. They would feel that their hard work and effort gave them a chance to change their lives. Though Sherlock did not understand what kinds of lives the goblins wanted to change, he implemented Blue's suggestion to keep them enthusiastic. One could not use this world's logic to understand the gamers' psychology. They did not require salaries yet worked diligently. Upon receiving the metal coins reward, they would be overjoyed, and they loved using the coins for transactions. Instead of seeing their work as hard labor, they believed that they were dungeon citizens responsible for its development. Sherlock liked the way it was going, as it would strengthen their sense of belonging and reduce the chances of them escaping or rebelling. The most important thing was that they worked hard without having to pay them magic stones. Very soon, Simba completed his first short sword and armor. Normal blacksmith shops and blacksmiths required half a day to complete forging, but Sherlock's blacksmith shop and blacksmith were not ordinary. Sherlock examined the cooled short sword carefully. It did not have a hilt, since there was no wood in the dungeon. The quality felt slightly bad. Without a hilt, the efficiency and power would be compromised. But, in the development stage, Sherlock believed that the goblins could overcome these challenges. The weapon fit the goblins nicely, but not Sherlock, as he was much larger in size than the goblins. Lord Sherlock, I suggest that an introduction be given to this equipment so that the gamers can understand our world's equipment. As Sherlock was examining the short sword, Bruce said to him, I had drafted a note on the equipment. I'll let you take a look. Sherlock nodded and received Bruce's equipment notes on an information panel that appeared beside the sword. Hiltless diamond short sword, ordinary white equipment. Damage, 0-10. Weight, 10. Durability, 10. Forger, blacksmith Simba. Required reputation, dungeon, Eternal Kingdom reputation level 1, basic level. Dungeon Eternal Kingdom's most commonly seen weapon. Forged from diamond seam. An information panel appeared beside the armor. Diamond armor, ordinary white equipment. Defense, 10. Weight, 20. Durability, 10. Forger, blacksmith Simba. Required reputation, dungeon, Eternal Kingdom reputation level 1, basic level. Dungeon Eternal Kingdom's most commonly seen equipment. Forged from diamond seam. Bruce's equipment notes were quite detailed, and the reputation concept had already been explained to Sherlock. It was a way for the gamers to show their respect and admiration for him. It was also a way to strengthen their sense of belonging to the dungeon. Whoever contributed to the dungeon would receive reputation. The reputation would be calculated in real time after the opening of the new area. After completion of missions and submission of their mission materials, the gamers would obtain reputation that allowed them better equipment, benefits and treatment. Those who worked hard and had excellent contributions would be greatly rewarded. Sherlock fully supported Blue's reputation reward system, and he waived in agreement. After handling these minor affairs, Sherlock returned to the dungeon core main hall and browsed the official website and discussion forum. Looking at the praises of the dungeon, Sherlock looked forward to their reaction after opening up his carefully prepared spider's lair. This method of managing the Otherworld's gamers made Sherlock recall his fun times with other devils when he was young. He was extremely fond of those times. The time was 7 in the morning. The Otherworld's gamers started waking up, and soon, the 100 gamers had already gathered at the blacksmith shop. They looked at the sweaty Simba forging intensely. What? Simba's forging? Making equipment? Can we start forging things ourselves? Where can we learn to forge? Look carefully. See if we can learn by watching. There's a weapon and equipment price list. Don't they have to shut down the servers while upgrading and setting up a new area? They can upgrade while the servers are still running. Arcane technology. Hey, take a look. The mission rewards contain reputation, dungeon reputation. The game has been upgraded with new stuff. new equipment, exploration area, and reputation. There are many updates today. I'm bursting with anticipation. While the gamers were noisily chatting in front of the blacksmith shop, Sherlock walked towards them. He cleared his throat and exerted his devil's authority. All eyes were on him as Sherlock said in a loud voice, "Citizens of the Eternal Kingdom. I, Devil Lord Sherlock, announce a new mission. To clear the spider lair for the Eternal Kingdom dungeon. According to Brew, the gamers from the Underworld treated adventure as a form of entertainment." After Sherlock announced the new mission of clearing the spider's lair, the gamers cheered loudly. Some even shouted, "For Eternal Kingdom," and "For Devil Lord Sherlock." The enthusiasm of the gamers gave a fright to Simba, who was forging the weapons. Enthusiasm was a good thing, as it showed high morale. They would work more diligently if they were motivated. Sherlock opened the door of the underground tunnel to the outside world. The spider's lair was close to the dungeon. It was directly connected by a single tunnel, so Sherlock did not have to worry that the gamers would wander to other places. To reach the other areas of the underworld, the gamers had to go through the spider's lair. The gamers were also unable to tunnel to other areas, because without Sherlock's order, the gamers were unable to mine indiscriminately. The gamers' enthusiasm was endorsed by Sherlock. The lowly goblins were unable to rebel against the superior devil. However, they could choose to escape the dungeon. The possibility of rebelling was slim as the gamers looked happy. When the main door opened, the gamers rushed in hordes to buy weapons and equipment. Sherlock was pleased. Though their behavior was strange, they were no fools. They would not venture empty-handed into the spider's lair and lose their lives. Simba's forged weapons were limited in number, and he only managed 5 short swords and armor in a few hours. Forging required a bit more time. The 100 gamers could not all get their hands on the equipment, but Sherlock thought of a good solution: increase the price. A short sword for 300 bronze coins. A set of armor for 300 bronze coins. Sherlock did some calculations according to the rewards that the goblins earned yesterday. They only had at most 100 bronze coins each. So, they would have to continue carrying the ores to accumulate a total of 600 bronze coins to buy their equipment. By that time, Simba would have already completed the 100 sets of equipment. Sherlock thought his plan was foolproof, but an incredible thing occurred. A goblin started buying out the bronze coins. A gamer called Arthur shouted among the crowd, 10 June for each bronze coin. I'll only collect 550 bronze coins. Deal is open until I meet my quota. You can use Alipay or WeChat for transaction. Search for my number 185XXXXX and add me as a friend. I can send you money in advance. When the other gamers heard Arthur, they bought their bronze coins to sell to him. Even other gamers like Notwear Inkpump started shouting to buy bronze coins. Some had the same price as Arthur at 10 June for a bronze coin. There were others who raised the price to 100 June for a bronze coin. Sherlock learned the Underworld's language before and knew that the jewel was also called renminbi. It was the Underworld's currency, and it had the same value as the Underworld's magic stones. Sherlock didn't expect the gamers to use the Underworld's currency to exchange for bronze coins, which did not have much value in the Underworld. Was the chance to have the equipment and venture out first that important? Sherlock would never use his magic stones to exchange for the Underworld's currency. Sherlock could not figure out the gamers' behavior, but Brew understood them and said, "Did you see that? Didn't I say they were rich sows? Yeah, it's a pity we can't implement a currency exchange and commerce system. If we could exchange the renminbi for magic stones, we would be the richest dungeon in the world." Sherlock understood Brew's words immediately. If the gamers were that generous and the Underworld's currency could be exchanged for magic stones, then he could make a handsome profit just by selling the most common equipment. Sherlock was excited, but it was not possible to exchange the Underworld's currency for magic stones. The trading of bronze coins was completed and 5 gamers managed to accumulate their 600 bronze coins each. Some of the other gamers continued accumulating the bronze coins at lower prices, while the rest started carrying the ores to earn their bronze coins. The 5 gamers immediately bought their equipment through Simba. Sherlock examined their names. They were Arthur, Notwear Inkpumps, Burning Kislair, Sylvanus and Sekarandomir Cat Demon. They quickly donned the armor and took up their hiltless short swords before setting off under the watchful gazes of the other gamers. A few bold gamers wanted to follow behind but were harshly declined by the 5 adventurers who did not want any additional burdens. The adventurers ventured outside as a team. Sherlock was curious what these 5 adventurers would do in the spider's lair and whether they would be pleased with his arrangements. Sherlock had no intention to follow behind the adventurers since the low-intellect spiders were instinctively afraid of devils. If he followed them, they would not encounter any tripped spiders. Sherlock had another way to observe his team of adventurers. Sherlock returned to the dungeon core main hall quickly and infused mana into the dungeon core. A misty image appeared before him. It was a simple surveillance spell that could observe people and objects within a certain radius. The surface world's magician had to use a crystal ball to do the same thing for a shorter duration. Sherlock discovered he had a tendency to observe the gamers' behavior because they always did the unexpected and were always curious about this world. A slight discovery would make them very happy, and they were extremely excited to explore. The 5 adventurers left the dungeon warily and lit up torches in the darkness. Holding the torches in one hand and their short swords in the other, they surveyed the environment carefully. Before long, they entered the spider's lair. After much discussion, Burning Kislair was placed in front, followed by Arthur, Sekarandomir Cat Demon, Notwear Inkpumps, and Sylvanus. They attracted the attention of the underground spiders, and the spider blocked their advance. It attacked them without hesitation. In the surveillance image, the 5 adventurers were stunned by the sudden appearance of the spider and recoiled in fear. It was normal for them to feel fear when a spider that was larger than a goblin charged at them maliciously. The first goblin to control his fear was Arthur. He stabbed the short sword into an eye of the spider that caused it to retreat in pain. The spider moved its huge mandibles wildly in a bid to dislodge the short sword from its eye and threw Arthur away with great force. The spider escaped quickly with the short sword impaled in its eye. The other 4 goblins helped Arthur to stand up. The 5 of them paced around at the spider's lair in trance as they hesitated whether to proceed. However, the underground spiders did not give the goblins any time. As indicated by Sherlock's monster bestiary, they lived in hordes. 10 underground spiders surrounded and attacked the pitiful gamers from all directions. The encounter ended in a complete victory for the underground spiders. The gamers were tightly bound by spider silk and dragged to the middle of the lair. Before long, the 5 souls of the adventurers appeared at the dungeon core. The first exploration into the spider's lair ended in complete annihilation. Sherlock did not intend to bring their bodies back from the spider's lair as it was too late. By this time, their bodies would have been completely devoured by the spiders. It was just as Sherlock had expected. A teleport portal appeared at the dungeon core main hall. A beginner goblin walked out with the words "Not wearing pants" above his head. The other gamers saw the adventurer not wearing pants returning to the dungeon in this fashion and understood that he had died without a corpse. How's it? Are the monsters difficult to kill? How did you die? Did you kill any monsters? Did you get any treasures? Tell us something. The gamers surrounded Not Wearing Pants and bombarded him with questions, but Not Wearing Pants seemed to be in shock as he was quiet for a long time. 4 teleport portals appeared and 4 goblins walked out. The names above their heads showed Arthur, Seykarandomir Captimon, Burning Kistair, and Sylvanus. The Otherworld's gamers went into a frenzy and exclaimed, "This is total annihilation. Why is it so difficult? Isn't this the first open combat area? Wow, what about the weapons and armor? Lost in the spider's lair. I hope that the equipment hasn't vanished. Maybe I can retrieve them. Don't bother, wait till we have the numbers before going back." Arthur suddenly shouted, "D***amen. This game monster is too realistic. The giant spider was twice my size and I saw its mandibles in detail. I'm fearless in real life, but I was almost scared to death just now. Fear was a normal emotion, especially when encountering underground spiders that were twice their size." The gamers had been blinded by their anticipation of adventure and had totally forgotten about the game's realism. If a spider twice the size of a goblin appeared, the goblins could feel the fear just from the mere thought. I just realized that this could be a horror game genre. If we have more numbers, we would not be that fearful. Let's carry more bricks, then we'll form a larger expedition group of about 40 to 50 gamers. And we'll adjust the pain setting to 0. What's there to be afraid of? Yes, courage with more numbers. Let's carry bricks, let's carry bricks. The gamers started to chat again. Though they were chatting, they continued to work diligently. They really loved to chat. Within this period of time, the gamers had no intention to explore the spider's lair as the first expedition group had been annihilated and had lost all their equipment. The underground spiders were visually fearful creatures to them. Sherlock was pleased to see that the gamers were still having fun and that his prepared entertainment outlet was having its desired effect. Sherlock would allow the gamers to decide how they were going to play the game. He did not need to worry that the gamers would not mine and expand the dungeon as they had to buy equipment before setting out on exploration. They had to carry bricks to earn bronze coins. Sherlock guessed that the gamers would die a few times to the spiders. After losing their equipment, wouldn't they not have to carry bricks again? It was a perfect cycle. The other dungeons were not able to operate in this way because their dead goblins could not be easily revived. Once the normal goblins perished, their souls would be trapped in the spirit world and had to be redeemed before revival. The process was extremely tedious. With Bruce's method, the souls of Underworld's goblins were trapped in the dungeon core after their death, so their revivals were very convenient. Sherlock always doubted that his dungeon core was abandoned and useless. It seemed that he had obtained an invaluable treasure. To build the great dungeon, Sherlock had to make sure that the gamers continued working diligently. He decided to retrieve the lost equipment belonging to the 5 adventurers. After all, he was a thrifty dungeon lord. It was wasteful to leave the equipment in the lair. He could retrieve them and outfit another 5 goblins. Sherlock arrived at the spider's lair and found the lost equipment quickly. The spiders did not feed on metal, so they had thrown the equipment at the lair's tunnel. Besides the lost equipment, Sherlock also found the spider whose head had been impaled by Arthur's short sword. The spider was dead, and faint green blood had been spilled all over the place. Sherlock was surprised that the spider carcass would be abandoned by the other spiders. He felt a faint mana ripple in the spider's body. Could this spider have swallowed a magical item? Sherlock decided to bring this spider back to the dungeon and let Simba dissect it. What if there was a valuable magical item? Sherlock was in need of magic stones. If he could obtain a valuable magical item, he could sell it for Simba's salary. When Sherlock brought back the equipment and carcass, it created a disturbance among the goblins. Besides the 5 adventurers, the other gamers had not witnessed an underground spider before. They surrounded Sherlock. Is that an underground spider? It looks terrifying. My knees are getting weak even though it's a dead spider. Though it's a game, it's too terrifying. How did the game pass the official checks? It's a game technology, and you're asking about checks. Not Wearing Pants pointed at the spider and shouted, "Arthur, this is the spider that you stabbed. Look, the wound is at the same location on the head." Arthur also found out about the head wound on the spider. The surrounding gamers looked at Arthur as though he was a hero, and the dungeon became a massive chatting hall again. Sherlock did not stop the gamers from looking at the underground spider. He ordered Not Wearing Pants and Arthur to carry the carcass to the blacksmith shop and help Simba dissect the spider so that Simba could take out the object from its stomach.
Sherlock would not do the dirty work himself.
Sherlock thought for a while and threw two short swords to Not Wearingpants and Arthur. He did not expect them to dissect it with their bare hands. Did this trigger off a hidden mission? I knew it. Killing the first monster has its special reward. I'm green with jealousy. I should have spent money to accumulate the bronze coins. The dungeon rang with the boisterous chatting of the gamers. Not Wearingpants and Arthur were taken aback. Under the envious gaze of the gamers, they retrieved the short swords and grabbed a furry spider leg each as they dragged the carcass towards the blacksmith shop. Some bold gamers also helped to push the giant carcass, though they did not receive any reward from Sherlock. Simba was forging weapons, and there was a pile of equipment at his side. Few gamers could afford to buy the equipment. Seeing Sherlock lead the gamers and a dead spider into his shop, Simba put aside his work and asked Sherlock respectfully, "Lord Sherlock, what can I do for you?" "There's something in the spider's stomach. Help me retrieve it. Be careful not to damage it. These two goblins are your assistants," Sherlock said as he pointed at Not Wearingpants and Arthur. Simba acknowledged him and took up a short sword. He gave some instructions to Not Wearingpants and Arthur as they started the dissection. The gamers exclaimed in shock as they followed the dissection. Most of them were terrified and disgusted by the dissection, which was rated R18. Sherlock stood back to avoid being stained by the spider's green blood. Before long, the spider was almost dissected, and both of Simba's assistants were stained with green and smelly blood. Many surrounding gamers felt sick, and a few gamers started vomiting out their meals. Not Wearingpants was feeling sick, while Arthur's face was ghastly white. The blood-stained Simba told Arthur to search the carcass carefully for objects. Without hesitation, Arthur squirmed into the carcass and carried out a dimly radiant metal ball. Sherlock waved at Arthur to let Arthur pass the metal ball to him. Arthur ran to Sherlock's side and raised the metal ball above his head. Sherlock took out a handkerchief from his pocket and covered the metal ball with the handkerchief in disgust. He put the metal ball in front of his eyes and smelled a horrible stench coming from it. He confirmed that the mana ripple came from the small metal ball. What was that ball? Sherlock found it familiar, but he could not recall from where. Since it had a mana ripple, it was definitely a magical item. He wanted the ball to be appraised and sold for magic stones. To appraise this magical item, he had to make a trip to Winterfell. Sherlock was about to use a teleport scroll to Winterfell when he noticed Arthur and Not Wearingpants. He pondered for a moment and said, "Wash yourselves clean and follow me. You'll be my assistants." They looked at each other and then followed Sherlock. The other gamers were green with jealousy. They are so lucky to get special missions consecutively. I wonder what the dungeon lord is asking them to do. Definitely good stuff. That's a benefit of being rich, isn't it? Perhaps I did not spend enough money. This has nothing to do with being rich. The other three rich gamers were not chosen. This game also doesn't have any currency exchange. Even if we wanted to spend money, we're unable to do so. The gamers started to chat excitedly again. Sherlock understood that the gamers liked to gather and chat. He did not stop them as he was a benevolent dungeon lord. They developed the dungeon far faster than normal goblins. Their fondness for chatting was not a serious flaw. Sherlock assigned Bro to manage the dungeon. Then, he took the metal ball with unknown magic power and beckoned Arthur and Not Wearingpants to stand by his side. Both of them were nervous. Not Wearingpants was swallowing his saliva incessantly while Arthur looked like he was fighting a boss-level monster. The other gamers watched with envy. Sherlock tore his teleport scroll, and the teleport spell formation appeared at Sherlock's feet. With Sherlock's expansion of mana, the spell formation widened to include Arthur and Not Wearingpants. Mana flashed brilliantly, and the three of them vanished. The gamers marveled at the short brilliance of the teleport spell. They looked dazedly at the empty space for quite some time before a gamer exclaimed, "Holy cow! What's that?" That was mana. Is that the dungeon lord's skill? It seemed like a skill book. I saw Shall I take out a scroll before tearing it. Can we buy it? Where did they go? New map. I'm dying with envy. The entire dungeon was filled with lively chatting again. In the next instant, Sherlock, Arthur and Not Wearingpants appeared at the reception hall of the teleport portals in Winterfell. Go out once you've filled in the forms. There are people using the portals behind you. It was the same previous orc who shouted at Sherlock and the goblins and slapped a form on Sherlock's chest. Sherlock filled out the form while Arthur and Not Wearingpants surveyed the surroundings curiously. To them, it was an entirely new world. Succubi, gnomes, giants, golems, mantis men, trends and goblins that looked like them. Sherlock was used to these strange creatures, but it was the first time Arthur and Not Wearingpants witnessed them. They were also in awe of the grand reception hall of the teleport portals and the detailed sculptured pillars that were dispersed in rows to support the hall's roof. The ceiling painting depicted a winged devil extending his finger to a commoner surrounded by an inferno of hell. The devil was supported by numerous other devils. This is the painting, World Destruction, depicting the great devil Michelangelo destroying the entire surface world. At that time, the great devil Michelangelo almost destroyed the surface world, but he was stopped. Nobody knows whether it is true as it is just a painting, Sherlock explained to the astonished Arthur and Not Wearingpants as he completed the form. Not Wearingpants nodded and looked around as he said to Arthur, "This is great information. I have to take more pictures. Tonight I'm going to post an exposition article." Arthur was more composed on Not Wearingpants. He merely surveyed the environment with his wide eyes. Sherlock handed the form to the gnome by the exit. Both of the gnome's ears were bandaged and he was complaining about his predicament last night to his colleague as he stamped Sherlock's form. After Sherlock's visa was processed, he brought Arthur and Not Wearingpants out of the reception hall. The streets of Winterfell were bustling with activity. Giants ambled slowly as they dragged their heavy merchandise, while hideous men and skeleton horses pulled carriages at high speeds along the green pavements. Sherlock did not stay on the pavement for long as he hurried to the bazaar. Arthur and Notwehr Inkpence did not have the chance to observe the surroundings as they followed Sherlock closely behind. Sherlock arrived at the bazaar and ignored the makeshift goblin stalls along the street. He brought his 2 goblins to a shop. In the shop's window were glass bottles filled with green bubbling solutions. An eye-patched parrot with sharp teeth stood on a suspended wooden beam. Something like an animal's internal organ hung on the signpost, which read, "Fear and Magical Items Shop." Sherlock made sure it was a magical item shop before going in. Arthur and Notwehr Inkpence were following behind and whispering to each other. They looked curiously around and could not resist touching a magic wand that was placed on the rack. This is a magic wand from a great surface world magician who perished. The human nations fought 2 wars just to obtain this magic wand. 3 kings perished. They were not aware that they were fighting for a fake wand. The real magic wand is with us, Fear and Magical Items Shop. A gnome explained the magic wand's history hastily with a creased face. He looked like a newborn baby with a gentleman's dome hat, long nose and a monocle perched on his pointed right ear. The gnome inhaled deeply and continued speaking quickly. "Respectable devil lord, if you buy it now, I'll offer you an acquaintance discount of 10%. You can take home the magic wand for 9,800 magic stones. I'll even give you a teleport spell enchantment with a cooldown period of 1 hour and a fixed teleport portal. You won't ever need to use teleport scroll anymore. If you purchase a lot of items, I'll arrange for a free delivery service and offer you a small little present. Don't you think you've got a good deal?" Sherlock felt his muscles convulse when he heard the price. Both Arthur and Notwehr Inkpence were not knowledgeable about magic stones as Arthur blurted out, "Is this a hidden missions reward? Are magic stones the future in-game intermediate currency? Where is the currency exchange portal? I'm okay if it does not exceed 1 million yuan. Oh my god, you are rich." Notwehr Inkpence looked in admiration at Arthur. Arthur ignored Notwehr Inkpence as he looked earnestly at the gnome shopkeeper, waiting for an answer. The gnome shopkeeper did not have the Underworld's knowledge and were not aware that the 2 goblins were from the Underworld. Even if he was experienced and knowledgeable, he did not understand what Arthur was saying. The gnome shopkeeper looked questioningly at Sherlock. Sherlock knew the backgrounds of Arthur and Notwehr Inkpence and the great difference between the cultures of the 2 worlds. Even if the gnome didn't understand Arthur's questions, it was normal. Sherlock did not want to explain as it was his commercial secret. "Apologies, I'm not here to buy things. I would like you to appraise a magical item." Sherlock took out from his pocket a metal ball that was emitting faint magical lights. He could feel the weak mana on the metal ball's surface, but he did not know what it was. All he knew was that it was valuable. The gnome shopkeeper adjusted his monocle and used his long slim fingers to take the metal ball. He scratched his long sharp nails on the metal ball and made shrill screeching sounds. As Sherlock waited for the shopkeeper's appraisal, Arthur frowned and asked Notwehr Inkpence, "Why didn't they tell me where to add money to my account?" Notwehr Inkpence rolled his eyes and said, "Rich man, you triggered the hidden mission after killing that spider. We're obviously in the mission. Don't think about the magic wand. It's only for show." They muttered to each other at the side. Sherlock was used to their antics and knew that they treated everything as part of the mission. The gnome shopkeeper heard the goblin saying strange things and cast them suspicious looks before whispering to Sherlock, "Devil Lord, there seems to be something wrong with your servant's head." "Thank you for your concern." The shopkeeper looked at the metal ball for a long time and took out a book for reference. He flipped through the book while licking and cross-referencing the metal ball. Sherlock considered informing the shopkeeper that the metal ball was found in a spider's stomach, but upon seeing the shopkeeper's intense concentration, he decided not to. "I knew it." The shopkeeper removed key.